welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV. I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as I am now every week, by our Midwest recruiting guru himself, Clint Cosgrove. Clint, great to see you again, buddy. How you doing today?
Always a pleasure, man. Couldn't be better. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk some Badger football.
Well, we're going to start by talking some Chicagoland recruiting because the Badgers have been hot on the trail after a couple different kids recently. Jamel Howard has been a really hot name. A couple new offers, Christopher Turrick and Justin Taylor. Let's talk about these three Chicagoland kids that they're in on. Let's start with the two new offers first, actually, Turrick and Taylor. What can you tell us about these guys?
Well, they're both guys that I've been following extensively since they were freshmen in high school. I'll start with Justin Taylor because I see more of him just because he's a skill kid. I see him at the 7-on-7s. He plays for Midwest Boom. See him at camps. He's a big camp kid. Like, he competes all over the place. And then he plays at Nazareth Academy. So I've been watching him over there. They always put out players. That's where, JJ McCarthy and, a bunch of other kids, went. So I've been following Justin close over the years. He's a very dynamic athlete. His best attribute is probably he's a really good football player, and he's really good on both sides of the ball. He's being recruited as a receiver and a defensive back. I personally like him as a defensive back, but he can definitely play receiver as well. I think he can play multiple places in the defensive secondary. Great kid, loves football, tough. And he's competitive. I think Wisconsin was his second Power 5 offer. Kansas State was the other one. I think that's going to be a big head turner for him. He's a kid, like I said, even as a freshman, I said this kid's going to be a Power 5 player. It turns out he most likely will be. And I think it's a good offer. I really do. You can't say he's a diamond in the rough. I wrote him about a couple of weeks ago as, one of the finds at the camps because he has like 17 offers before the Wisconsin offer. It's just he didn't have that like big offers. So, but Christopher Tarek, he is actually coached by Sigmund, old Sig, who played at Wisconsin back in the day, is his offensive line coach at Glenbard West. So Chris, when he was a freshman, was always had a great frame, and he was skinny though. You didn't know if he'd put on the weight. And then during COVID, he put on the weight plus. And so then he had to get his weight down. And then now he's he's like 6'6", 295. He plays rugby, not rugby, lacrosse. I was thinking of you, Perko, when I said the rugby. But
hey, man, listen, I'll tell you, football players should be playing it in the spring. Way less chance at getting your bones injured than playing freaking like baseball, actually. So it's actually,
that's surprising.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. So I digress here. So go ahead, keep going with Turk.
But yeah, no. So the fact that a 6'6" offensive tackle is out there running around playing lacrosse says a lot about him. He's athletic, and really, I think it took the spring eval period where coaches got to go and see their morning workouts, and then go back and look at the film and everything like that. He picked up in the same day. He got Iowa, then Illinois, then Wisconsin, then Michigan. I did an interview with him last night that comes out today, but then he picked up Minnesota today, so that's already outdated. So he is blowing up. I think Wisconsin has a shot. I have a feeling he'll play in the Big Ten. I don't know where for sure. He grew up watching Michigan, so you never know with that. But he does seem to be high on Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I think he wants to play in the Big Ten.
Awesome. Yeah, and so then Jamel Howard, big kid, nose tackle. I was watching his film recently, and now obviously I don't have your experience with it. I see a big kid who is really quick off the line, has great feet, but it just tries to finesse everything. Actually doesn't use any of his power. I saw him trying to swim offensive linemen that are 100 pounds lighter than him. And I'm looking at him just like, dude, like, you are massive. And if you can get off the ball that fast, that means you have to have some sort of strength. So I'm hoping that, I know Wisconsin's in deep on him. He's high on Wisconsin, but I'm hoping that, especially if he's going to play nose in Wisconsin's 3-4 system, which is a lot of times 2 down linemen, you have to occupy blockers, and he doesn't really seem to do that.
Yeah, so Jamel, Another kid I've been watching since he was a freshman in high school, because Marist plugs out, puts out a lot of kids. Like Tom Lemming always did his photo shoot over there at Marist High School. So all the young bucks would come along for that. You beat them young. So Jamel's always been really big, but he's a true nose. He doesn't, he doesn't have that 3 technique build or that defensive end build. He's built to occupy blockers. I do think I see what you're saying. I could see him trying to get a little fancy. He wants to get a little of that interior pass rush going. There will be a time for that, but he's built to take on double teams. He once he develops more, gets stronger, I think he will be able to do that. It's just being young and being raw. He's got the physical tools, and as soon as he really develops them, I think you'll see a big jump from what you see on film last year to this year. And a big reason for that is, and it happens with a lot of the Illinois kids right now, because we did not get anything during the COVID year and do not have spring ball. And these kids, some of them, like Jamil, that was his last, he might have gotten a sniff like freshman year, or was freshman year. Yeah, freshman year was a COVID year. So,
his freshman year would have been the COVID season, and then his sophomore season, ends up being. I guess his sophomore. If he's a 23,
his sophomore season was COVID, right?
Yeah. Because then fall of 22. Yeah, so it would have been So his sophomore season would have been the fall of COVID, and that's just like, especially I would imagine that your job, especially state to state, considering how different the laws were as it regards to who can play, who can't play, all this kind of different stuff. It's in a state like Michigan, I know. Like I remember Aiden Vaughn had no tape, like his entire junior season, because there was no football in Michigan, right? Or barely any football. And so
he got hurt.
Yeah, and he got hurt. Yeah. So you get all this kind of working together against some of these kids. But one of the things that you mentioned is that, some of these kids, the offer blows up, and then certain offers mean more than other offers, right? Was it Taylor or Turrick? You said was Michigan? It sounded like he grew up watching Michigan.
Yeah, Turrick. Yeah.
Turrick. And so for him, a Michigan offer would mean a ton. For a lot of, if you grew up in the Midwest, an Ohio State offer is going to mean a lot. If you grow up in the South, Alabama, Georgia, some of these like elite programs, we know how much an offer means from those schools. What does an offer from Wisconsin mean? Because one of the things we know, Wisconsin doesn't just throw offers out there, right? I mean, I was doing the research before we got on here. Penn State has offered 322 players in the 2023 cycle that we know about, according to Rivals.com, whereas the Badgers have offered 125. Michigan State, who has Wisconsin's former recruiting coordinator, Saeed Khalif, they have thrown out 313 offers. Nebraska's thrown out 279. Even Minnesota has 190 out there. It's like Wisconsin and Iowa as well. Like neither of those schools throw out a ton of offers. So does Wisconsin offer mean something different to these kids? Is it an academic thing? Like what's the significance of a Wisconsin offer, do you think, in the minds of a lot of these kids?
I think it really depends on the kid, depends on where they're from. You mentioned Iowa and Wisconsin being the two that really haven't thrown out a lot of offers. They're also considered teams that have been developmental programs that have won with great coaching, developed a good eye for talent, and developing those guys when they bring them in. To me, growing up around the program, I kind of talked about it with the running backs last week. I never understood. I was like, if you get a Wisconsin offer, why wouldn't you go there? And I think, you get growing up around the program, you understand the significance of a Wisconsin offer. For a kid who has not grown up around the program, I don't know. Obviously it's big. It's a Big Ten offer. It's a team that plays on TV in big games, wins big games. I mean, I've been away from that side of it for so long. I do think for like Justin Taylor, I haven't talked to him since he got the offer, but I guarantee you, like, that's a groundbreaking offer for him.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that's huge. For a kid who's been offered by Alabama, LSU, Wisconsin might just be another one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've seen a lot. Is a lot of times, I think that we see Wisconsin is the one that breaks the sort of breaks the ceiling, becomes the first Power 5 offer, first Big Ten offer for a lot of the kids that they go after, and that seems to hold weight
Yeah.
With kids, have you found that kind of thing holds weight if they're the first Power 5 or Big Ten offer with kids? Because we see a lot of kids who have they've got 9 scholarship offers from the MAC, but Wisconsin steps in as the first Big Ten offer.
Yep.
Then it's all of a sudden, okay, is it a sort of a domino effect that, okay, if I'm at Ohio State, do I see that, okay, Wisconsin's recruiting this kid and Illinois is recruiting this kid? Do we need to go and look at it too? Like they're sort of like our AAA of recruiting, if you will.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a copycat league, and until a kid gets that big offer, like you can slow play them. A lot of these schools do, because there's no sense of urgency, especially if I'm Ohio State or Alabama. I know I can offer whenever I want, and unless the other big dogs who I fight with for the top recruits every year have already offered, that's what creates the urgency. A Wisconsin offer, yeah, I mean that creates urgency for a school like Ohio State, or an in-state school, or a kid whose own in-state team hasn't offered them, and stuff like that. So yeah, recruiting's interesting like that. One kid might not think much of an Ohio State offer. Another kid might think it's the greatest thing ever. I think across the board, yeah, those elite offers are, like you said, Ohio State, Michigan, LSU, Alabama, and the funny thing is it's not dependent on the success of the program at that time. Like LSU technically had a down year, but like I'm sure they'll do great recruiting this year. Like Wisconsin has had a string of good years. I think that people nationally look at the program a lot different than when I was coming up and when we were in high school, because kids grew up watching Wisconsin being good. Kids grew up watching Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. When I was young, we didn't grow up watching Wisconsin go to the Rose Bowl every year, compete for a Big Ten title every year. So I do think the significance of the Wisconsin offer has evolved, has become more important, but it still isn't to the level of that, the Alabama and such. So,
all right. Well, speaking of growing up around the program, we're going to get you out of here on this today. You guys probably know, if you've been watching these for any amount of time, that, Clint grew up right around the program. Your dad was on staff for a long time. So we had a question from a Den member asking who was your favorite assistant coach to be around, or do you have any really notable stories that you can share with us outside of the ones that you've obviously shared with me and Bernie over on Believe in Badger Football? We're gonna occupy most of those stories. That's our domain, but we do want to hear a little bit about it here.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I could sit down and go for hours on stories growing up around the program, and the great people who came in and out of there. It was, my dad was there for like 14 years or something. So there were so many coaches that came through. So many people that I still talk to today, from, Brian White, Brad Childress, Bill Callahan. He gave me my first job at Nebraska. Henry Mason, who coached me. And I remember growing up around him, nicest guy ever. And he, second I get on the field as a player, he's ripping my butt right away. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But there's just, John Palermo, Huber, all the secondary coaches, Almation, Ron Cooper, it's crazy how many people, Coach Alvarez, going over to his house and hanging out at the pool, and Cindy, making us snacks and stuff like that. Just so many good memories. John Tetman, workouts with him just always being amazing. Brian Bott, just so many people who came through there that hold a special place in my life. And I really hope, and I know I did, I'd probably miss somebody, but it was such a tight-knit group. It was something special that I don't know if you can replicate nowadays, the way things are. Yeah, there's so many coaches. There's not a single one.
You named those guys on the staff. Future NFL head coaches, NFL offensive, defensive coordinators, college head coaches. It's pretty amazing the coaching talent that was on display in the Barry Alvarez era, especially in those late 90s, early 2000s teams. Those are absolutely stacked. And you mentioned Henry Mason, and every guy who was recruited by or coached by Henry Mason that's come on the podcast with me and Bernie just absolutely raves about him and talks about how he is one of the, most genuine, kind, and caring people around, and that their relationship with him especially was one of the main reasons that they ended up coming to Wisconsin.
Yeah, Coach Mason will always have a very special place with me. I mean, I grew up around him, but then, getting to know him playing, and he's just like, there's few better than him. I get like emotional thinking about it. But yeah, no, Coach Mason's the man. Yeah, no.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, there was a lot of good people who rolled through, and it was special to be able to grow up around that program. It put me in a position to learn and gain knowledge, and just the way that Coach Alvarez allowed me to hang around the program. Like, I could just go to the office, I could hang out in meetings, I would go and stay at camp with them. I was like a little football junkie, and he opened the door. Coach Alvarez allowed that for me. So, it was very special to grow up around. It definitely was, and it put me in a position to be where I am today.
That's fantastic, man. That's fantastic. Well, we really appreciate your insights and your time here on BadgerBlitz TV. You guys know where to find Clint at @rivals_Clint, pretty much on all of the social medias, right? Or at least on the Twitters.
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. Twitter's so overwhelming, so.
Dude, it's hard, man. It's really hard. It's really hard out there. I feel like because we are sort of the last generation that grew up like not on the internet 24/7. And so like, I don't know, like I got my first phone when I was like 19, 20, like my first cell phone. And even then it was a Nokia brick. So, this whole idea of just being like constantly like updating my feelings and ideas to the entire world is very difficult for me. So, but I would much rather sit down and have a conversation with you like we do every single week. So until next week, Clint, it's a pleasure as always. Love seeing you, buddy. I hope all is well. Make sure to read Clint all the time on rivals.com. And until next time, on Wisconsin.
I can't say it.
I know you can't say it, but I can say it. I can say it. I'm allowed to say it. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Well, not quite, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Thank you, Clint. Make sure to check out everything over on BadgerBlitz.com, and we will see you next time.